All right, everyone. So Mike and I were talking the other day, and we talked about how crazy the terminology is in the game of golf. There are so many words that are used to define what happens in the golf swing.
But what
And
does that mean?
and you know what's funny? I was a coach in my early 20s, working with players on the PGA Tour, and some of the terms I didn't even know. I knew how to make a person do what they needed to do to hit the golf ball better, but I didn't know what flexion and extension were.
Yeah.
You know, I really didn't. So we're here to explain some of these golf terms that might confuse you so that when you're hearing people talk about them, you understand what they're talking about. And you might even better understand your own swing and some of the flaws that you have as a result of this. Okay, so we're going to start off in the setup. We're going to talk about the spine angle. The spine angle both from the face-on and the down-the-line view. The down-the-line view is called the primary tilt. Then there's a secondary tilt from the face-on view. I'm going to let Mike explain the primary tilt and the spine angle.
Let's break it down, right? So from the down the line view, you look at the spine. If I had a metal rod going through my spine, when I tilt from my hips and my waist, now all of a sudden that spine starts to change angles, and that's our primary spine angle in the game of golf.
There you go.
You want to make sure we maintain that spine angle through the swing. That's how we get really, really consistent.
And we'll talk about that in a second because that spine angle prevents early extension. Now, here's the thing. We're going to talk from the face-on view here. This is the secondary tilt. The hips or the belt line are perpendicular to your spine. We always teach that slight hip bump towards the target that creates the post, the brace, and the necessary spine angle to help us turn behind the ball without swaying and rotate and cover it without sliding. A couple more terms we're going to talk about in a little bit here as well. But the thing that's important to understand, when we bump our hips slightly forward and leave our sternum still, we create a tilt visible from the face-on view slightly away from the target. That is called your secondary tilt. This helps you transfer your weight properly. Weight transfer is happening as a result of rotating around those fixed points. And it's my upper body turning over the inside of my back foot that puts that pressure there. And then rotating around my spine puts the pressure back into my lead foot. Now, that prevents another term, the reverse pivot.
Yep.
Now, Mike, I'll help you. Please explain the reverse pivot to everybody.
So we're talking spine angle now, guys. We understand what that is, and the reverse pivot is really one where the spine angle changes and goes a little bit more forward. At that same time, at the top of the backswing, the hips are going away from the target. So this is your reverse pivot. When the player takes the spine angle, it leans towards the target, and the hips go away from the target. We get in a position here where there's only one thing to do through the golf ball.
Back up.
Gosh,
So you guys,
back up, stand up, come out of it.
that's the reverse pivot. Basically what's happening is we talked about that weight transfer happening as a result of simply rotating and having my upper body put the pressure into my lower body in both directions. Well, if the upper body's falling this way, pressure's there, and then it falls back there. That's your reverse pivot, okay? Now, let's talk about
The hottest
spine
topic
angle
in golf.
and early extension.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay,
There it
so
is.
early
You
extension.
got to take this one,
I'll
too.
take this one, okay? Here's the big thing. Spine angle and that tilt that you create here, that primary tilt, this puts us in a position to play golf underneath us and not around us. So when we tilt, the goal would be to maintain this angle throughout the swing. Now, early extension is when the hips move towards the golf ball and the chest stands up and extends and the arms then extend to hit the golf ball, okay? So this is early extension. This is maintaining your posture or maintaining your spine angle, okay? So that's very important to understand that when you set up from the face-on view and you have the proper secondary tilt, and you set up from the down the line view and you have the ideal primary tilt, well, you can eliminate early extension and you can eliminate your reverse pivot simply by setting up correctly.
Man, you make that sound so easy.
You know what? I just learned, hey, if you set up correctly and keep your head in one spot, you eliminate both in both directions.
What was the first time you ever saw that on display?
Well, I'll tell you what, the first time I ever heard about it was when Jack Grout was holding Jack Nicklaus's hair. And just holding his hair as he was swinging. Well, guess what? You can't fall forward, you can't fall back, you can't go down, you can't come up, otherwise that would really hurt. So, your spine angle is a fixed point. You don't want it to have a tremendous amount of movement, especially in the backswing. Will there be a little bit in the downswing, forward and through the golf ball? Absolutely. But here's the big thing. That leads me to our next topic. Let's talk about a sway and talk about a slide.
Yep.
A little easier. I think a lot of people would know what this one is right here, but let's at least define what is swaying. That's in our backswing.
The sway and the slide, guys, is terms for what's going on below the belt and when your hips specifically. Okay, so when a player talks about a sway off of the golf ball, their hips are moving away from the target. Oftentimes we'll see this right hip get outside of the right shoe, something we never want to have happen in the golf swing. When the hips stay in place and you turn, all of a sudden those hips will just stay in a barrel, turning inside your feet. Any lateral movement away from the target causes a sway or is a sway, and then what happens?
You have to slide right back to the target.
Slide back through. So the slide now is the downswing version of the sway. It's going back towards the target, right? Everything's going laterally and side to side, and not a way we really want to play golf.
Mike mentioned something really important, turning in a barrel, right? The barrel's right here. And if you watch my hips, I'm turning right in there. Now, what I always learned was this was the anchor point. The lead hip's the anchor point right here, okay? So this is where the lead hip starts, right in the middle of the lead foot. Now, if I move off that too much, that's the sway, right?
Yep.
And of course, if we start sliding, we get outside that foot, that's a big slide. Now, one thing that's important, how to prevent that, once you set the hips the right way, you see that right hip is right on the inside of my right foot there. So trail hip on the inside of trail foot. My coach always told me, imagine like there's a wall right there. And just never bump into the wall with your lower body. That was a great tip. And if you do that, guess what? You maintain that anchor point. You're taking away the sway, and you're taking away all the reasons why you'd have to slide on the way back through.
Now, what about on the lead side? Is there an imaginary wall on the lead side as well?
Well, there actually is to hit into. You never want your lead hip to get too far outside your lead foot.
Yep.
For the average player, Scotty's an anomaly there, but
Yep.
You know what? With the average player who does that, you're not going to rotate. He does a phenomenal job of rotating through impact. Remember, rotation's in the downswing. Turning is always to the top. This is the turn. This is rotation right here. And, one thing that happens when you sway and slide, you typically don't turn your body as efficiently. You typically don't rotate your body as efficiently. I've always used that little algorithm that every inch of sway takes about 10 degrees of rotation away.
Yep.
So that's important to understand. When you watch a player like a Rory or a Scotty, they're able to have a little bit of lateral movement into the golf ball, but still rotate. Very dangerous for the average player to be working on that move because of the fact that they just slide. They continue to slide towards the target and they don't rotate.
Well, that's great. I love that, and I love how simple it is too. I mean, we like to call this human being terms.
Human being terms. We're gonna hit you with a couple more here. So here's some more human being terms for you. We're gonna talk about the grip. We're gonna talk about the hands. Okay.
Yep.
So the grip. First off, here we go. Let's talk about a weak grip and a strong grip. We had this in a recent video.
Yep.
We talked about that, but we'll talk about it again. A weak grip is when the trail hand is always going to be on top with the lead hand more underneath. So if you look at the lead hand, that's underneath. That's a weak lead hand grip. This is a really weak trail hand grip. A strong one would be lead hand very much on top and the trail one underneath. That's a strong grip right there. And what happens, guys, listen to this. Just knowing the term open and closed. Open and closed. Okay, or we can call it shut. They call it shut face, right? Or a closed club face. A closed club face is one that is too closed in the backswing. An open one that's too open, right? The shut one looks like this and points towards the sky. The open one points right towards the ground. A square one, is really matching your spine angle right here and then matching your lead arm at the top of your swing. The angle here and the angle here would match. That's a square club face. But the real big thing is, that's dependent upon having a neutral grip. We're going to talk about that in a second. A neutral grip is just one where you see two knuckles on your lead hand. The lifeline of your trail hand covers the thumb, and then you're gripping it more in your fingers, and you see the crease between the index finger and thumb pointed more up to the inside of this arm at my right pec. So really what's important there, I see two knuckles. I see that crease point up here. That's a neutral grip where the golf club is going to be square throughout my swing. But, just understanding weak grip and understanding a strong grip is important. And then I'm going to let Mike talk about, what we see a lot of times, not only in the backswing what's important to how to set the club properly, but then what a lot of people do when they flip, flexion and extension, okay? These are some wrist terms we'll talk about now. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So when we get our hands on there in a neutral position, right, we can see the two knuckles like Adam said. We can see the right hand a little bit more on top. Now, flexion and extension, well, back in the day, we used to just call this bowed and cupped.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we like to talk about it, right? And bowed and cupped. Let's talk about the lead wrist first, right? When you get this lead wrist cupped, that is the extension version of what's going on.
Yep.
Okay. Now we used to call it back in the day a bowed wrist.
More the
What's
Dustin
changing
Johnson
there?
look
More
right
of
here.
Dustin Johnson,
Yep.
right? This is your wrist that's in flexion. Okay. These two words always confuse me in the golf swing. You know, it was just
Yeah.
so much easier to think about those simple, more human being terms of bowed and flex.
Absolutely. Bowed and cupped, when you put both
bowed
hands
cupped.
together, it just, there's different terms for both hands. The trail hand is the one where you can really feel that flexion. That's when the knuckles go up to the back of your forearm, and that's more of that forward shaft lean that we want to see at impact. Extension is that flip where the hand goes this way, and that looks like that, right? So here's the big thing. The lead wrist is really the one that's cupped, and the cupping actually opens the club face, whereas the bowing really shuts the club face, okay? Now, here's the thing. Having a good grip takes away a lot of the extension that people have or the flipping they have through impact, right? If you have a very, very, very weak grip and that club face is very open in the backswing, well, then you're required to have to flip it through impact. A lot of times, people get their hands on there sometimes too strong with that left hand, and then all of a sudden their left wrist is so cupped at the top of the swing, that they have to unwind that somehow as well at the bottom. So, there's things that happen with our grip being too weak, being too strong, that will lead to flexion and extension. But I think it's important to understand, guys, just real quick, flexion, extension, cupped, bowed, those are some simple terms that make a big difference in understanding what people are talking about when talking about their hands throughout the golf swing. Okay? Yep. So, just flipping the club is a term too, right? We talk about flipping the club. That club flips past the hands.
How about a flip versus a release?
Yeah,
What's
what? I love that. A release for me, if I had to define the release in the golf swing, okay, I get the club to what I call the slot position right here. And the slot position is the position, really it's the heartbeat of the swing. It's halfway down right here where that club is loaded in a position that when I rotate and let the club go, everything goes right down the line. So, the slot position right here, watch this. This is what's great about the slot position. You get into the right spot right here and you let it go. And man, that thing just goes right down the line with great contact just like that without even thinking. But here's the thing. When I get into the slot and I have the appropriate angle between my lead arm and the club, I can actually release that club as I rotate, and I'm still going to have my lead arm and the club an extension of one another. I think it's very dangerous to talk about a release for a lot of players because what they need to feel in order to create this look at impact right here with the shaft leaning ahead of the club is very, very different. Some people, most amateurs, let go of this angle early, and then the club passes their hands, so the only way they feel like they can have forward shaft lean is by dragging it through. That's not the right way. The release is only possible with a good transition. The transition has to be maintaining the angle, or as Eddie Merrens would call it, the little pro from Bel Air, swinging the handle, not the club head. Swinging the handle looks like this. And then from here, guys, my left pocket and my hands, my left pocket can fire back and rotate, and my hands can let go and release the club. And that's, for me, it's done with the body and the hands. It's not simply just a hands motion. I call it the rotate and release, right? But that's only if you get in the slot position. We're running through these terms, and a big one, the swing plane versus the hand path. And what really affects those, back to the setup, being open or closed with our shoulders or our feet. So, Mike, define what open and closed are, because people mix this up. They think open is one thing, they think closed is another thing. Tell me what open is first.
Absolutely, guys. So open is if I'm trying to aim straight out here at this red flag.
Yeah, so here we go, right here, right?
Okay, we'll
so
put
this is
right down the line. Open is going to mean a number of different things for different parts of your body. Well, my feet, if they're aiming more left of the intended target line, that's open.
Open
my
feet.
Hips, my shoulders, right? The alignment of my whole body here is open. Now, you also have there an open be in the club, right? The club, if it's actually pointing to the right of the target, that's going to be an open club face, all right? So you've got your body gets open, goes to the left of the target for a right-handed player. Your club face gets open, and it goes to the right of the target for a right-handed player. All right? Now closed, okay? Yep, you guessed it. The opposite is going to be the orientation of my body, my feet, my hips, my shoulders, going out to the right of a target for the right-handed player. Okay, everything is going out in the right side of the target, and then closed with my club face is actually going to be, again, the opposite of that. The club face pointing a little bit more to the left of the target, okay, for a right-handed player.
Yeah, so this is important to understand. You know, I see a lot of times a player, and this is the most common thing I see with a driver. I'm hitting right at you guys. I see feet going way right, and I see shoulders wide open. The recipe for the big pull slice.
Yep.
Okay? Now, those are closed. That's a closed lower body with an open upper body, right?
They
so
can be two different things.
You can see two different things. So I see this right here, where the golfer who's been hitting their slice all day is so sick of it, so they try to have their feet going this way to promote a draw, and little do they know they're swinging dead across their body because they have the ball forward and they're facing it, and they look like this. So, you know, once again, Mike's 100% right. There's your shoulders, there's your hips, there's your knees, there's your feet.
Yep.
Okay? All of those we try to get lined up as best as possible so that we are square, 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 square.
Trying to get all those parallel, you know,
Absolutely.
running right along the same line. And we don't see that often, though.
And the one thing I will tell you, though, that the most important of all of them for putting, for the swing in general, the shoulders.
Yep.
The shoulders are really the train track of your feet and really dictate where you're aligned, okay? I really, it's comical to me. I walk down a range and the guy will be like this, and you know, his buddy goes, dude, you're aiming so far right. And his shoulders are over here, pointed, you know, 50 degrees left of where his feet are. And this is actually what's dictating where he's lined up, because when he looks, he's seeing his shoulders here, and he's looking from here. His upper body feels like it's aimed over here. When you look down, of course, the feet are aiming right, but his shoulders are actually dictating where he's actually aiming. But it's important to understand, you know, this is me opening up to you. This is me closing myself off to you, okay? So we want to make sure each part of our body is keeping it nice and square, and the club face is square. One of the best things you can do on the range to prevent yourself from doing this incorrectly is just get a little T line like this.
Oh, the best.
Okay?
Yeah.
Not only will you have your feet on a nice straight line, but you can have that club in a position to where you can see what a square line is, you know, relative to your target as well. So that's a great way to be able to help yourself square up to the target. Now, let's talk
those
about
shoulders really affect the swing plane
well,
and the hand path,
I'm
right?
so happy you just push us right to the next topic. Think about this. If I have my shoulders closed, where's my hand path going to be? And hand path, guys, forget it. We're not talking about the golf club. The hands are going to be moving this way. If I'm this way, naturally, a lot of times they go that way. But if they're square, my hand path relative to my body's turn goes back down the line and then into the direction of my shoulder. So hand path, guys, the direction your hands travel in the swing. What's the correct hand path? The ideal hand path is going to be your hands moving around your spine angle in the direction of your shoulders. So watch this. To say it perfectly. To pocket high, they go straight back down the line of your feet, and then they go up the escalator in the direction of the shoulders. That lead arm matches the shoulder plane. That shows you that you have a good hand path. Now, if there's a little bit of noise above us here, forgive me, I'm sure you still can hear me, but it's one of our favorite things about working at the Fairmont Grand Del Mar. We got Miramar right over there, the original Top Gun, and we got the jets flying overhead all day. So whenever you guys are watching a YouTube video and you hear that, we don't stop, but if we do look up, it's because, tip the cap. That's the coolest part about being in San Diego and working out here. We're right in the flight path, and it is pretty awesome. Let's talk about the golf club itself.
Yeah.
Swing plane. You got this, bud.
All right, guys. So
where's that butt end supposed to point?
The swing plane is referring to the relationship between the grip, the club head, and then as a result, the shaft, the thing that connects those two.
So here's the ball.
The ball's right here. Now, what we're looking for in the swing plane is where the club head is going in relation to the grip. So sometimes the club head will go way inside, right? This would be an inside club head. That starts to get pointed now. This is the butt of the club over the golf ball.
Right?
This would be flat, okay? things get inside, they get flat, right? Now, the swing plane can also get, if the shoulders are open like we talked about, holy cow, it can start going way up and out, all right? And again, now you're gonna start to see something different. Now the club head and the grip are a little bit more up and down, the butt of the club, right? The swing plane is gonna be pointing a little bit more down to the ground. This will be steep, this will be outside, right? A number of different things you could kind of talk about that for.
So
right?
what's ideal? What's ideal? The body club points,
what we want to
where?
see is the club head working right up the shaft into the hands, and then as the club sets, we're going to see the butt of the club pointing directly at the golf ball or up to 6 inches inside of it.
And the
right?
reason why we say 6 inches inside of it, that's the love zone. That's just the position right there where the golf club, you know, stays in front of your body. And in transition, it allows it to then, you know, work down the right plane. I think it's important to understand. Mike, toss me 2 balls here. Actually, let's go 3. And this is really important, you guys. You saw me do this earlier, but I'm gonna talk about this real quick. So look at this. The swing plane. You can preset a lot of problems here. If you get up and outside. If my hands go out, that club gets steep. Look where I'm going with no manipulation. I'm going dead left. How about this? With no manipulation. If I'm inside and behind me, I'm out right. But guess what? If my hand path and my swing plane are ideal and they are matching up to where I actually should be aiming, when I rotate back through impact, it goes right down the line of my feet, right where I'm aiming. And I think that's incredibly important, very, very, very important to understand.
Absolutely.
When you have a square setup, you're promoting the ideal hand path. When you understand how to take it away, we have many videos on how to take the club away. You can just type in Porzak Golf Takeaway, and it'll show you how to hinge that golf club and get to the set position like I just did, to put your swing on a path to the least amount of manipulation. I mean, you know what's going to be great about this? I'm sure someone in the comment section is going to drop some, and here's the thing, if there's more terms that you guys are
let us
questioning.
know. We're going to get back here. We're going to break it down for you into human terms.
Absolutely. Okay? We're going to break it down for you in human being terms, and I encourage you, get our master class. Either join us for one of these 2-day clinics, the Porzak Golf Complete Game Clinic, or come join us here at the beautiful Fairmont Grand Del Mar. Let me tell you, we have an incredible, incredible place for you to come get better. And we also do FaceTime lessons for those who, you know, around the world can't always get to us. So there's a lot of avenues here that you can take to, you know, to get right to us, to have an in-person, face-to-face. Even, you know, it's funny, the FaceTime sessions, I have to say, you know, they really work. And it's something that, you know, we've been the initiators of in our industry, which is really cool, and something that I think, you know, if you ever want to get out here, we get a lot of questions from people thinking they need to see somebody in person, and don't get me wrong, the personal touch is great, but, you know, I had a question from a guy in Australia the other day. Hey, do you know somebody out here that teaches just like you? Guys, I hate to say it, nobody teaches just like us. We are what we are, and we're a little unique out here, but we break it down into human being terms, and I appreciate how a lot of our following, who everybody comes and sees us, goes, you know what they say always? They go,
every single time.
Every time they go, guys, you know, you really just speak to me. And I'm like, well, you know what's funny? The other 150 people that showed up on the range the last 2 weeks have said the same thing. We take a lot of pride in that. It's what we do. And this job that we have, we don't take lightly. You know, it's a lot of you out there love the game of golf, just like we do. It's the greatest game ever played, and it's an absolute privilege to help you play your best and understand it with clarity. And understand, you know, our job here is not to use big words and entertain you with how much we know.
Nope.
We're trying to help you understand how little that you need to know in order to actually be great.
Yep, absolutely, guys. So we hope you enjoyed the session on our golf terminology and breaking it down for you. Come back and see us. If you have any other questions with any terminology we didn't cover, leave them in the comment section. We'll get them right back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. At Porzak Golf, we take a lot of pride in having developed some of the best and most consistent golf swings on the planet. We do this through simplicity. Our Full Swing Masterclass will take you on a step-by-step, easy-to-understand process on how to get your golf swing better than ever. Join the many before you who've utilized our Full Swing Masterclass to take their games to the next level and beyond.